Okay, so for today's overview, what we're going to be looking at is the package manager called Flatpak. Flatpak is an interesting technology in the sense that it allows people or developers to package their applications, but they package it in such a way that it isn't a distro-specific package. So previously, when looking at package managers, we were comparing apt or apt to DNF. apt typically works with Debian, Ubuntu, and all the derivatives. DNF typically works with RedHat, Fedora, CentOS, and all of their derivatives. The difference really comes down to the file structure. So if we were using, we can maybe even just check real quick, search for install Google Chrome. And if we look at downloading Google Chrome, they'll have this .deb, which is for Debian Ubuntu, or .rpm, which is for Fedora or OpenSUSE. What Flatpak allows you to do is that you can install the Flatpaks and you don't really have to worry about packaging the application for these different derivatives. .deb, .rpm, those are the most common. Those are not the only kinds of Linux distributions. There's things like Arch, Manjaro, OpenSUSE, SUSE, all of these different types of Linux distros. And honestly, for a lot of software developers, a lot of people, it becomes very difficult to package and structure all your applications for that. So what we're going to look at today is Flatpak. Flatpak is quickly becoming one of the de facto ways for packaging applications as they pertain to the desktop. So anything which is a desktop class application, oftentimes you'll be able to find a Flatpak derivative for it. And I actually run quite a few Flatpaks, not a ton, but I run a few, which lets me get connected and get working with the applications that I want on a Linux system. So important to cover and important to mention. Flatpak, the other nice thing about it is sandboxed. So rather than going to run something which is apt, so if we were to do in the terminal here, if we do Flatpak list, we get a list of all the Flatpaks that we have. And make this bigger. If we run it, so we have all these different things. We have 0AD, this is a game. We have Slack, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's Slack for communication. We have Visual Code, Studio Code, Audacity. We have things like the Signal desktop, so for Signal instant messages. We also have a whole list of all these different things that we don't really understand, like Free Desktop Platform, Mesa, Intel, Open 264. All of these things are runtimes that the apps that I use require in order to display themselves. So because Flatpaks are sandboxed, they need to run off their own sort of like Flatpak known or Flatpak aware runtimes. So they need to download these additional runtimes in order to function. So this can cause like some overhead, but the advantage there is that one, a lot of this overhead is common. It's stuff that's you download it once and then most other Flatpaks can generally use. Two, the additional environment here that we have is isolated. It's separate from the rest of the machine. So the Flatpak app, to an extent, is sandboxed when it runs on your device. So in a sense, it's a bit more secure, a little bit like iOS and Android, in the sense that the applications that run in both those platforms are also sandboxed. They're usually kind of self-contained, and only the permissions given are the permissions allowed to the application when they run. And the same sort of holds true for Flatpaks. In a future video, we'll look at snaps. which have the same sort of concept. The implementation is a little bit different. But for Flatpaks and for snaps, they both sort of work in a sandbox way. So they're in a sense a bit more like the kinds of applications that you would find on mobile device computing. So what I want to do is just quickly go through a couple of commands to help people get up and running with Flatpak. So first of all, we're going to open a separate window. Make this bigger. Okay, so this is our Fedora box. This is Fedora server, so we'll be a bit limited in terms of what we can do, but we can start getting started. So what we can do is first we type the command Flatpak. Command is not found, so we need to install Flatpak. So what we're going to do is going to do dnf install Flatpak. So now this is running. If we were on, because this box is running Fedora server, so it needs to like download a bunch of stuff. But you can see that to just install Flatpak and get everything running on Fedora, it also has a bunch of dependencies. So it would install all of this stuff, and this is what would be needed to get running. So I'm just going to install it. I'm not guaranteed it's going to work. You can see that everything coming down is a Dart RPM. Again, this is the RedHat package management. So this is the Red Hat style of applications. So we need all of this in order to get Flatpak running. But once Flatpak is up and running, then like the Flatpak that you're running on a Debian distro, a Ubuntu distro, is going to be effectively kind of similar to, say, what you'd be running on a Fedora distro or a Red Hat distro, etc. So it allows developers to have one sort of like way of packaging the software, and then it can run pretty much everywhere. Okay. So it's complete. It's already run. Then we can run Flatpak. At this point, we run Flatpak search, and we're going to look for let's look for Slack. See. Now this has an error because there's no repo. So if we go back to the Flatpak page, it says get set up. There's a quick setup. We're going to go to the setup for Fedora. And you need to install the repository file. So you can manually add the repo by doing this command. So we just copy the command, go back over, Control-Shift-V. Get rid of that space. I'm going to do this. Need some authentication, which is fine. Okay, now let's see if we can get Flatpak search to work again. It's looking. Okay, and then we get the actual search. So there's a couple of checks. A lot of that won't happen if you're doing a install of Fedora workstation. So that would be Fedora with the UI. But you can see that right off the bat, once we have Flatpak sort of set up, and we've gone through the steps to give it a repository or like a location to find and search for the various software, it actually does work very similar to, say, what we're used to doing with DNF. I can do DNF search htop, for example, and it will go out and it will search and look for this htop. So I can search for packages in command line wise. It's very similar, except the types of packages that I would look for with Flatpak typically are for desktop. So it's typically for a graphical user interface or a GUI kind of application, but it would have things like Slack or Ripcord or whatever. On the Flatpak website, if we go back, we can go to FlatHub itself, and we can search for all sorts of apps. So we can look for Signal, we could look for WhatsApp, we could look for Zero AD, which is a pretty cool game. And you can download many different types of files. I did a quick Google search of this just before, and it says there's more than 2,000 apps in the Flatpak repository. So a ton of things that people using Linux on the desktop would find interesting. Let's go through. I'm going to go back to my main system, which is this Pop! OS device. I'm just going to go through a couple of the commands. So Flatpak search Slack, we already did. So this would go out and find Slack. If I wanted to do Flatpak install, so I could do Flatpak install. Now the one thing which is a little bit tricky sometimes with Flatpak is you need to do Flatpak install, but you need to tell it like which repository you're looking for. So what we're looking for is the repository on FlatHub, which is what we set up on the Fedora system. It's already been set up on my Pop! OS. So we're going to have install Rocket Chat. And when you do the install, you don't just give it the name, you have to give it the application ID. So we can go ahead and copy this. I'm just going to right click copy. Then over here, we're going to do right click paste. And then if we do this, it'll try to install Rocket Chat. Now I'm not running Rocket Chat, but I can try to look for it. So it says, okay, to install Rocket Chat, this is what's going to be installed. I have all of the environments set up already for Rocket Chat to work. So it looks like we're pretty much good to go. If I wanted to install it right now, it would take about 98.9 megabytes, so close to 100 megabytes. I'm going to click no. The other thing that you can do is we can go and we do list again. We can also do things and update, and we can update either the full stack. So we just do Flatpak update. And then this would like go through and try to update everything that needs updating. The other thing that we could do is you can do Flatpak update, and then we can pick like what we want to update. So org.signal.signal. Copy, paste. It says we're already up to date, so nothing to do. And honestly, these are pretty much like most of the main commands. If you do flatpak --help, you get a full list of all the stuff that you'd want. In addition to install update, there's also the uninstall. So if we wanted to uninstall something, we could just type flatpak uninstall org.signal.signal, and then it would prompt us like, do you want to uninstall this? For me right at the moment, no, but that would be the command to do it. And then this would allow you to get a lot of the basic functionality for how most users would interact with Flatpak. Now there is a ton of other tooling, so if you wanted to like build applications and use Flatpak, that would be using all these build application commands over here. I'm personally not versed in that, not being a developer, but being able to use Flatpak from the command line gives you a lot of flexibility, and also make sure that you can have a lot of the applications that you want to run be able to run. So like looking over here, I have a ton more applications because I'm installing things with Flatpak than I would otherwise. The other thing that I want to mention is a lot of app stores, for example, Pop! OS, but not just Pop! OS, also I think Fedora, maybe Endeavor OS, some of like Manjaro, they have many types of applications that are actually being managed by Flatpaks, and they'll show it here in the GUI. So if you install some of these applications, you'll actually see like, oh, this is actually the Flatpak managed application. Like for example, this Zero AD, it shows up, this is the repo that we chose for 0AD rather than the .deb. We're actually using the Flatpak version, okay? So even if you're using the graphical installer, which can be useful, I don't always recommend, because I think graphical application installers tend to slow down sometimes, but could be available. But just be mindful, like when you're searching for an application, that you know exactly which one you're installing, because that could sometimes cause a little bit of difference in terms of performance, in terms of the download size, but also in terms of security. So Flatpaks, because they're sandboxed, by some account, if you're doing anything which you think is a little bit, you don't want this particular application necessarily having access to the rest of your file system, maybe go Flatpak. If you think it's something that you want to run all the time and it's a minimal size app, you trust the application, yeah, then you can maybe go ahead and just do the app dev install. But I just wanted to run through this and give a really quick overview from a user's perspective of how Flatpaks and FlatHub sort of work together. So I hope this was helpful. I'll add more information in the blog. And as always, thank you very much.